Right now, though, let's turn our attention back to politics. James Hill joins us. He's political correspondent at The Spectator. Good morning to you.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you very much for joining us. Lots to talk about. Let's talk just first of all about Labour's workers' rights. We're told, even by the government's own estimation, which we spoke to the Institute of Economic Affairs earlier, that it's probably an underestimation, £5 billion cost to their reforms to workers' rights. You know, day one, you get, rights to sick pay, maternity pay, and right to sue for unfair dismissal and a lot. Is there any chance at all the government is going to backtrack on this? Because we know that businesses are getting very worried about it.
Yes, and of course, I think the most damning line from the government's own impact assessment is that it will slow down growth, it will act to slow that down. Of course, the very first thing that Keir Starmer said when he gave that Rose Garden press conference in July was wealth creation is the #1 priority of this government, and our wealth creators, the Federation of Small Businesses, for instance, are saying that's going to do the opposite. I don't think it's going to lead to a U-turn because, frankly, the unions are the ones who've been bankrolling Labour for years. They're the ones who've got this over the line, and Labour don't see any conflict between the fact that they've got these proposals and actually they are going for growth, as they say. So it's a really difficult balancing act. Yeah. One difficult to pull off.
Well, indeed, we're talking about a government that refuses to rule out putting up employers' national insurance, which is, as I keep saying, boringly, literally a tax on jobs in the budget on October the 30th, isn't going to have an issue with things like people getting sick pay. Again, we've got an issue. We've got a government where I don't think there's anyone in government who's ever set up and run their own business. They have no idea what the motivations are and how the difficulties and what really impacts those decisions.
And I think it's a world, in which most of them seem to live as a public sector one, where they talk about the public sector, they talk about the state, they talk about growing that public sector, but not the private sector. And I think that is the real danger, really. It's not so much sort of what you do know as what you don't know. And I think there's a lot of the kind of business, in the sense they don't feel properly listened to by this government, particularly represented by this government, and they really worry how they can square all these very difficult circles. Yeah,
although all the loads of business were coming out saying how wonderful Labour were, well, be careful what you wish for. That said, not sure the Tories did a very good job either, but I think that's a fair point to make. Let's talk about nanny state. I mean, again, we've seen enough nanny state from the last 14 years of the Tory government, but Keir Starmer was signalling yesterday introduction of further nanny state measures, they're called, talking about ill health. And we'll come on, by the way, to the NHS consultation that's been quite amusing for a lot of people. But there's talk about things like, young children going into hospital because of tooth decay, supervised toothbrushing. Again, you're not sending people into homes. We're going to be talking about teachers. They're changing kids' nappies, teaching them how to go to the toilet, helping them to get dressed and undressed, giving them breakfast, helping them supervise cleaning their teeth. I mean, eventually, we won't even bother sending kids home. They'll just be sleeping in dormitories that the state runs, won't they?
Yeah, I think that this is another burden going to be put on other people involved in public sector employees. Look, a lot of teachers I talk to, they say they just want to go there and teach, but...
What? Wait, no, you've lost me. What are you talking about, James? What sort of madness is that? Sack them all immediately for thinking such crazy things.
Absolutely. It's a rare thing in the public sector to actually want to do the job you're employed to do. But a lot of them do that. And I think the concern is that they have increasingly burdens. And I empathise in one sense with the government in that, there are just a lot of parents who are not doing what they need to do in terms of preparing their children for a day at school, giving them the breakfast they need, getting them ready. And a lot of teachers and teachers' assistants are the ones who have to pick up the slack in all of this. Yeah,
well, again, I think I don't think we should be interfering in the children. I think we should be tackling the parents. I really think we're going to have to start doing this. And I want government out of people's lives, but not when it involves kids. You can be as fat as you want. You can do whatever you want within the law. I don't care. If it impacts on your child's ability to be functioning, go to school, to live a healthy life, then I'm afraid it is my business.
Yeah, prevention is going to be the big thing about this Labour government. Look, they see all the problems with the NHS and they think, well, we can save, if we spend pennies now, we can save pounds later in the system. So they're going to see a lot more of these measures. There's a real drumbeat. I think that Wes Streeting is going to be the real energising force of a lot of this. He's someone who's pushing for it, smoke-free Britain, etc. The danger is, of course, it does come across as very nannying. And will it work? That's the jury's still out.
Well, this is the thing. We've heard this. Genuinely, I was a political editor back at, 25 years ago. They were saying this stuff then. Everyone's going to deal with efficiency. Everyone's going to deal with tax loopholes. Everyone's going to get more money off the rich, and everyone is going to, make sure that we tackle health prevention. They all say it. None of it ever happens, and I'm wondering why.
Well, I think, the problem is the government, when they try and add more regulations, you get more loopholes. And so you get the tax code, for instance, thicker and thicker. And in terms of the NHS, the problem is that in one sense that the more you let people live longer, they'll die of different things. And so,
I love that, letting people live longer. We're into, what's that? Logan's Run. You're a young, and how old are you, James?
I'm 29, just
29,
about.
you see, 30, we should be, Everyone just cut off at 30. I'm 26 years over that. Just do away with us all at that point. That's what we should do. We'd be so much cheaper to run as a country. Look, let's talk about this NHS consultation. We talked about it on the show yesterday. There's ideas for NHS reform. I've been told by people who work in the NHS, frankly, it's a load of nonsense, this consultation. They know exactly what they want to do already. And frankly, if they don't know what they want to do, Wes Streeting's been Shadow Health Secretary for quite a while. They're coming to office. They should know what they want to do. But some people haven't taken Wes Streeting's call for new ideas to improve the health service quite as seriously as many might have hoped. It's pointed out by quite a few people on Twitter yesterday, on X, that actually an awful lot of the reports, the actual suggestions were still public, and they've removed the material they said that was clearly inappropriate or irrelevant. We'll be the judge of that. But things like one of the suggestions, which Wes Streeting himself commented on, was a recommendation for a Wetherspoons pub in every hospital. It's already been, he says, sadly vetoed by the Chancellor. He also rejected a call for him to be fired out of a cannon in a bid to raise funds for the health service. Other ideas was putting the lager Madri on tap in all hospitals to help patient morale, replacing Wes Streeting as Health Secretary with a dog, replacing ambulance sirens with healthy eating advice, installing Thunderbird 2-style detachable patient compartments in ambulances. I mean, a lot of these ideas, I mean, great fun, but perhaps not what the Health Secretary was looking for.
Well, my favourite one was the suggestion that they have weigh-ins of nurses and have thin nurses to set a good example. This was then followed, after I pointed it out, with a suggestion that we have buxom nurses instead and sort of fully figured. So I think it was a sort of Hattie Jakes fan, perhaps. You know?
Yeah. Well, no, there was a point, but it wasn't. It was Sir Simon Stevens, who was the former chief executive of the NHS. He was a former Labour special advisor. Actually, he said we need to, nurses need to lead by example because obesity among nursing staff is off the scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's actually a good argument in the sense of having professionals who, are able to sort of set the values they live by. I mean, famously, of course, when the NHS was the first to reveal that in the 1950s that there was a link between smoking and lung cancer, the doctor who announced it, the head of the BMA, chain smoked through that entire press conference. The medical practitioners aren't always the best. Funnily enough, actually, my favourite suggestion, I think, was the suggestion that patients should be allowed to leave donations in their will to their doctors, and it was sent in by one H. Shipman. So I suggest perhaps that anonymity wasn't exactly honest.
Harold Shipman, yeah, we remember. But also, I mean, look, we all know, go back to, was it 2016, Boaty McBoatface, can the public help name a polar ship? Yeah. Boaty McBoatface. It was a joke by a radio DJ, and it got taken over. I love the great British public for that. That's kind of one of the main reasons I love Britain. What epitomises Britain? Boaty McBoatface tells you everything you need to know about our country. Can I ask you very briefly, though, also about the Tory leadership contest? It's not set the world alight, let's be honest, with no disrespect to Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch, the people still in that race. We had a TV debate last week. Who knows, there may be another one this week, but lots of the voting slips have gone out, a lot of votes already coming back in. But this morning, Suella Braverman, the former Home Secretary, you think she was actually Robert Jenrick's boss. She has endorsed Robert Jenrick on the basis that he's willing to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. How close is that race? And who do you think is going to be the winner?
I think it's pretty close. I mean, the only poll we've actually had is from YouGov, which gave 52-48 Kemi Badenoch to Robert Jenrick. Then you also have the surveys by Conservative Home, which gives a sort of 20-point lead to Kemi Badenoch. I think it is close. I'd say 55-45. Kemi Badenoch, I think, is ahead in the bookies' favourites, and I think most MPs think she's more likely. But it is close. And there was actually a debate last night at the Next Generation Tory hustings, at which they did actually clash a little bit on the point about, do you set out your manifesto in full now, or do you talk about general principles? And both are important, I think. So we've still got another week to go. Yeah. But I think the fact that the Jerry campaign are doing so much activity suggests they know they're behind a little bit and need to catch up. Yeah, well, indeed, she came from he was a standing start. She was already at the front because Kemi Badenoch doing far fewer appearances and fewer debates, whereas Jenrick has basically said, I'm up for everything. We shall wait and see what happens. November the 2nd is the date we finally found out what the result is, because I don't know, I don't get a vote. Do you get a vote? Claire Pissell gets a vote. But really appreciate you joining us, political correspondent at The Spectator. That's James Heal. Thank you.